Whenever fighters lose inside the octagon, they usually are humble about it and make no excuses as to why they lost their fights. They simply just say that their opponent was the better fighter on that night, and they will continue to improve and come back stronger. However, this is not always the case, as some fighters make up excuses as to why they lost, and they don't want to admit they lost fair and square. In this video, we are going to look at the most ridiculous excuses fighters have made after losing. Joanna. Joanna by far is one of the most dominant female fighters in the UFC, with 5 successful title defenses in the strawweight division. It seemed as if she was going to remain champion for quite a while and even break Ronda Rousey's title defense record of 6. At UFC 217, when she faced Rose Namajunas, those dreams came crashing down as Rose Namajunas would defeat Joanna in the first round via TKO. It would be labeled as one of the biggest upsets in the UFC, as well as be the stepping stone for Rose Namajunas into the spotlight. However, Joanna did not take so lightly to the loss, as she would go on to state the reason behind her loss was a bad weight cut caused by her nutritionist. Joanna explained that she had to cut 16 pounds in just 14 hours before her fight against Rose Namajunas took place. She would then part ways with her nutritionist, saying that the mistakes they made were unforgivable. But in the fight, we saw that Joanna was fighting like she always did. Only Rose was much more organized and studied her better than any of her previous opponents and knew exactly what she had to do to get the win. Alistair Overeem. Alistair Overeem is a true MMA veteran with 67 total bouts and is a former Strikeforce heavyweight champion, Dream heavyweight champion, and K1 World Grand Prix champion. His next task was to win gold in the UFC, and he would finally get the chance when he faced Stipe Miocic at UFC 203. This fight turned out to be one of the greatest first-round fights ever, with both fighters being hurt and not giving in. It would be just 30 seconds left when Miocic would knock out Overeem and send the Cleveland crowd jumping to the ceiling, though the fans would change their attitude when Joe Rogan would interview Overeem, only for Overeem to claim that Miocic had tapped in the fight without the official ever noticing it. Rogan would shut this down as he made Overeem watch the replay from 2 different angles, thus proving that Overeem was just trying to find a way to get an immediate rematch or have the fight possibly overturned to a no contest probably. Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz always was a fan favorite, and when his anticipated fight against former champion George St. Pierre at UFC 158 took place, fans were on their feet. Though, when the fight took place, fans would witness a one-sided beating as St. Pierre was able to bring Diaz to the ground and dominate him through the entire fight, thus making this fight an upset. After the loss, Diaz would congratulate St. Pierre, but that would not last. He and his training camp would then come up with countless reasons as to why George St. Pierre was victorious. One would be that there was a spy in their training camp working for George St. Pierre and shared information with St. Pierre on all his moves so he would be able to counter them when the fight took place. Diaz would then come up with his agenda by stating his IV was poisoned because he slept for 14 hours when he said that he always slept for 5 or 6 hours at the max. Diaz would even accuse St. Pierre of using steroids and that St. Pierre was in no way better than him. No matter how many excuses Diaz and his team came up with, it was not going to convince people he could have won the fight. St. Pierre was on a whole other level than Diaz. Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa was making a name for himself when he entered the UFC. With his knockout power, he looked like a future champion and was even predicted by some MMA outlets to be the one to dethrone Israel Adesanya. Fans would finally get to see these two face off at UFC 253, which was predicted to be a war. Instead, it turned out to be a one-sided fight for Adesanya, as he had no trouble controlling Costa and would ultimately put him away with a TKO victory in round 2. Everyone figured that Costa would take the loss like a true professional and keep his head up. That would not be the case, as he would go on to explain why he lost his bout against Adesanya. He stated that he consumed an entire bottle of wine the night before his fight as a way to help him sleep so he would be well rested for the fight. He then said that when he woke up in the morning, he felt drunk and still was when the match took place. Okay, so he might have had an entire bottle of wine to drink one night, but it is highly unlikely that one bottle of wine could keep a person drunk for more than 24 hours. Before we continue, remember to subscribe to our channel so you can watch all of our content when it airs. Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is the biggest star the UFC has ever seen, and he has displayed his GOAT status whenever he stepped foot inside the octagon. Though he lost fights, he was always humble about them and never gave an excuse as to why he lost. Instead, he just got right back on the horse and trained to fix his mistakes. That would not be the case when he faced Khabib Nurmagomedov at UFC 229. In the fight, Khabib would dominate McGregor throughout most of the fight. Though McGregor did win the 3rd round against Khabib, making him the first fighter to win a round against Khabib. It would be Khabib who would walk away as the victor with a neck crack forcing McGregor to tap. After the fight, fans were expecting McGregor to give no excuses as to why he lost, but McGregor surprisingly did just that, as he stated that he broke his foot 3 weeks before the fight. He said it was swollen up like a balloon and he could not walk on it properly. However, in the fight we saw him standing and hopping around on both feet with no problem, as if he was never hurt. Whether or not it was true, McGregor can't run from the fact that he lost the fight fair and square and was unable to end Khabib's undefeated streak. That there is our list of ridiculous excuses fighters have made after a loss. Remember to subscribe to our channel so you can be notified whenever we post new content. We post new content daily.